Well, that was quite the introduction. Do I even need to present? I mean, that was basically it. I'm just kidding, of course. I'm so happy to be here today, and I want to start off just with a quick little audience activity to see who's who. Raise your hand if you think that space is cool and awesome. All right, oh God, good. Friendly audience then. And now let's see another one. Raise your hand if you would someday like to work in the space industry. Yes, okay. One more. And this one will probably have fewer hands. Raise your hand if you want to go to space someday, if you want to be an astronaut. Wow, all right, well, I've got my crew right here then, it seems. We'll get started. Ever since I was 5 years old, whoa. Yeah, sure. Ever since I was a little kid, probably 5 years old, I have wanted to go to space. I've been like a lot of you, and I've looked at the night sky and dreamed. I wondered what the stars were, how many of them there were, but most of all, I dreamed of someday going to space. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, but I knew that it would happen. I would become an astronaut. I did all of the things that kids do that were associated with that dream. I read copious amounts of space-based science fiction. I launched homemade rockets. When I was really little, turned my closet into an imaginary spaceship, all of those. However, a huge turning point in this dream and in my life really happened when I was 13 years old and my mom brought me to Kennedy Space Center in Florida to see the launch of STS-134 Endeavour, the second to last shuttle to ever launch. This was the first time that I had seen a rocket in person, so that was really great. And this experience, which happened 7 years ago, was really the focal point where my childhood dream became an attainable life pursuit. So this is a really important point in my life. And while seeing the launch was exciting, turns out that wasn't actually the important part of this experience. It was who I met along the way that was really important. And that goes to show that, as cliche as it may sound, the journey is more important than the destination. And I'm going to tell you why. That's what I want to share with you today, is first my journey towards becoming the first person on the red planet and all of our journey as humanity to one day step foot on Mars. So while I was visiting Kennedy Space Center for this launch, I met astronaut Wendy Lorenz, who's pictured here. And she was the first astronaut that I had ever met, especially as a young woman looking to go into this profession. Meeting her was absolutely phenomenal and inspirational. Little did I know at the time that Wendy and I would end up being good friends. We would meet multiple times over the next couple of years, and that every time that we met, she would encourage me and really instill in me this belief that I could achieve this dream, that I could become an astronaut. She even, 4 years later, agreed to join the board, the advisory board for the nonprofit that I would start called the Mars Generation, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Wendy wasn't the only astronaut that I met while I was on this trip to see the Endeavour launch. The other one was a little bit more by accident. I was in the airport on the way home from the Endeavour launch, and I bumped into an astronaut from Italy. Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano. So I went up to him and I asked him if I could interview him for a school project that I was working on. So I was 13 years old, and it was this very small project for grade school. But he agreed. He agreed to that interview, and that turned into more than an interview because we spent over an hour sitting in that airport waiting for our flights, just talking about space travel and about his job and about my dreams. And he gave me a lot of really great advice, but especially one piece that I want to share with all of you today, which is that he told me to follow my passions when it came to my studies and not to focus on what I thought NASA was looking for in an astronaut candidate, because what NASA was really looking for is people who are passionate about what they do. And that doesn't just go for space travel or for NASA, that goes for anything that you're looking to get involved with. You will do best in it if it is really what you are interested and excited about. So that was life-changing advice that stopped me from going into an engineering degree that I didn't need. So after meeting Luca in 2013, he became my mentor, and 2 years later, he invited me to come to Kazakhstan, Baikonur, Kazakhstan, to watch his launch on the Russian Soyuz. Even more important than watching that, though, was that he asked me to be his Earth liaison. So he asked me to share his experiences living and working in space with a different group than he could through my unique social media audience here on Earth. That experience as Luca's Earth liaison is really what helped to shape the worldwide outreach program that I started after that, that eventually grew into the Mars Generation nonprofit. So I'm just going to take a hop and a skip for a second back 2 years exactly and talk once more about that science project, or that school project, which when I did it, I never imagined that it would come up so many times in my future, but here we go. For that project, I also wanted to get a quote from a NASA employee. So I set up a Twitter account, and I started reaching out to different NASA employees. And I did end up getting a quote, but I also got a lot more than that one quote. I found that there were all of these people in the space community who were so thrilled by my bold declaration of wanting to be the first person on Mars. I suddenly had people from all walks of life in all corners of the world telling me how excited they were to see a young person step forward and lead us to Mars. At the time, I didn't realize that I was the first kid to go online and make such a bold declaration like this. I was just looking for that one quote. I did get the quote, and like I said, a lot more. I found a community of people who were supportive and encouraging of me. And I also found my voice and was empowered to become a leader in our generation and to advocate for STEM. That's an acronym I'll use a couple more times. It means science, technology, engineering, and math, and space exploration. So just to sum all of that up concisely, when I was 13 years old, I was suddenly empowered to help change the future, not just watch the future unfold in front of me. What began initially as a choice to share my journey towards becoming an astronaut, the everyday steps online, turned into a worldwide outreach program where I was sharing everything that I was doing, whether it was attending rocket launches or touring Mars research facilities, all the way down to just participating in school sports and clubs, all of it. I began speaking to groups around the world, and especially in schools, writing for publications, and even set up an email pen pal program for other students. I partnered with scientists, engineers, and even space agencies around the world to increase the excitement in the general public about STEM and educate people about the importance of space exploration. So as a kid who grew up at the same time that the internet was growing up, which I would imagine most of you in this room are in that similar demographic. Some of you probably remember the time before the internet, but I don't. I was one of the first in my generation to really utilize this new tool that we had to achieve a huge goal and kind of change the landscape on how you go about achieving your career and your dreams. So by the time that I was 18 years old, those initial 200 followers that I had on Twitter had grown to over 700,000 people who were all excited about this journey that I was on and were basically coming to space and coming to Mars with me through social media. It was at that point, when I was 18, that I decided to start the Mars Generation nonprofit. I started the Mars Generation in 2015 with the goal of continuing the outreach work that I had been doing, but in a larger and more impactful way, by empowering others to become advocates for STEM and space exploration, and to help excite people of all ages all around the world about those things. I'd realized that At 18, as someone who had a large social media following, I had a voice, but I was still just one person. And one person can only do so much. So I wanted to empower other people to also, to use that digital community to empower other people to also go out and do the same thing, to advocate for space exploration, to advocate for STEM education, to help make the world a better place. I was fortunate to have many professionals, including astronauts, teachers, communicators, scientists, you name it, they were there, who helped me set up this nonprofit and this amazing venture. It's hard to believe that today that we just had our 2nd anniversary, and we now have over 1 million people who are following the Mars generation, and we have reached a total of 25 million people around the world with the important work that we are doing. Thank you. So what is it, though, that makes the Mars generation so novel and so effective? Well, it's that we're on the cutting edge of technology. We are innovators. We're a nonprofit that is built on the back of social media, that is using new media as its basis. What we're doing is working in a space, and yes, pun intended, but we're working in a space that is the future, just like going to Mars is the future. We're making STEM cool again by reaching out to young people on the medias that they are already on the medias that they want to be reached out to. We're focusing on the exciting topic of human space exploration, which can grab anyone's interest. And we're providing both digital and real-life experiences for young people to engage and excite them about what their futures can look like. We're working towards a very important goal to ensure that humans continue to explore space, and especially that Mars is that next step that we go for. Continuing to explore space is essential for humanity for so many reasons, but a big one is innovation. The best way to grow in technology, science, and knowledge in general is to push our boundaries. To put ourselves in challenging situations. By placing ourselves in impossible situations and then making them possible, that is how we grow. And what's more impossible than space travel? What's more impossible than leaving not just the comforts of Earth that we experience every day, but the very things that are essential for human life, leaving all of those behind and traveling out into the deep unknown, cold of space. By choosing to do this impossible, we push our scientists, our engineers, our programmers, and everyone who is involved to make it possible, to innovate and to advance. And that's how we as a society will continue to have these great leaps in advancements that will improve our lives here on Earth. So that's why space. But why Mars? And here's where I have to be careful, because I'm only supposed to take 10 minutes, and this honestly could go on all day and all of tomorrow because there are so many great reasons why Mars, but I'll keep it to the 3 that I think are the most important, which is that Mars is the next possible impossible that we have to go after. Putting humans into space, that's not enough. We have to also be constantly pushing our boundaries, constantly challenging ourselves, constantly going farther than we've gone before, if we want to continue to reap the benefits that we get from space exploration. So it's time for us to venture out beyond low Earth orbit. It's time for us to travel past the moon. It's time for us to begin exploring our solar system, our cosmic home, firsthand. And that all starts by putting boots on the ground, by putting humans on Mars. So another important reason to go to Mars is to inspire youth and people of all ages to dream big and then to act big on those dreams. We saw it when we went to the moon. We inspired generations to dream big, to not think that anything was impossible, and then to act on that. And that's what we have to thank for the world that we live in today, for a lot of the really great things that we experience. Going to Mars will do that for generations to come. You cannot underestimate the value of inspiration, the value of teaching the next generation that we can make a difference, that we can do anything that we believe in, that even the impossible is possible, and that we can create the future that we want to see. But going to Mars is not just about innovation or inspiration, it's also about ensuring that that future happens, ensuring that we as a human species survive. Because eventually we will exhaust the resources and the capacity that our lovely Earth has, and we need to start planning now of where and how we will live once we reach that tipping point. That all starts by actually going out and testing things and trying things and doing it now. So, really? Can I have 2 more minutes? Okay, great. Sorry guys, I'm a little over time, but we'll be done really quickly. So basically, yes, we really need to go to Mars. That's super important. And the final point about this then is that it is our generation's time to lead to Mars. It's our time to do this huge feat, to end up in the history books, and to make that huge leap forward for mankind. So just like generations before us have done, we hope to do that. That is why the Mars Generation is titled what it is, the Mars Generation Nonprofit. I'll really quickly just run through the 3 main programs that we have, which are that we have a Future of Space outreach program where we hope to get our message out to the public and really inspire and excite a lot of people about space exploration. We have a Student Space Ambassador Leadership Program where we're trying to show students and young people what their futures can look like and the different paths that they can take to reach that. We also have a Space Camp Scholarship Program where we send students living at or below the poverty level to space camps so that they can have a life-changing experience. And I'll conclude by saying that I hope that after hearing a bit of my story and hearing about the Mars Generation, you all take away this one item that is our motto, and that is to dream big, act big, and in doing so, to inspire others around you. Thank you so much for your time today.